There is something you need to understand right now, and if it truly lands inside you, the way you see your life will never feel the same again. You might feel like everything is falling apart, like you are stuck, behind, or invisible despite all your effort. But what if none of this is actually working against you? What if, in ways you cannot yet perceive, everything is quietly arranging itself in your favor? There is an unseen intelligence at work in your life, constantly moving things, shifting situations, and aligning events in ways your current understanding cannot fully grasp. Most people miss this because they only judge what is visible on the surface. So they give up too early, they lose patience, and they assume nothing is changing. But before you fall into that conclusion, you need to hear this deeply. There is a principle operating in your experience all the time. Your outer life is not random. It is not separate from you. It is actually a reflection of your inner world. What you see around you is mirroring what you consistently believe, expect, and accept within yourself. This idea goes against what most people are taught because we are trained to think life happens to us. But in truth, your inner state is constantly shaping your outer experience. Every thought you repeat, every belief you hold quietly, every assumption you accept about yourself becomes creative. When you keep telling yourself that nothing ever works out or that you are always behind, you are not just describing your life, you are reinforcing it. Life then responds in a way that confirms your belief, not because it is against you, but because it reflects who you are being internally. In the same way, when you begin to shift your inner dialogue and start assuming that things are working out, that opportunities are coming, that you are supported and guided, your external reality slowly begins to adjust to that new state. Change does not start with action alone. Action without inner alignment feels forced and frustrating. Real change begins inside. When your inner world changes, your actions naturally follow without struggle. You stop chasing outcomes and start living from the version of you who already has what you desire. From that state, things begin to unfold differently. But this requires awareness. You have to start noticing what you are feeding your mind every day. What story are you repeating when things go wrong? Are you reinforcing doubt, fear, and lack? Or are you choosing to trust even when there is no immediate proof? Because every reaction of doubt strengthens the old reality, while every moment of faith plants the foundation for a new one. The outer world does not shift instantly. There is always a delay between your inner change and its physical reflection, and this is exactly where most people lose patience. They look at their current situation and assume nothing is happening, so they return to old thinking. But that only restarts the same cycle. If you truly understand that life is reflecting you, then you stop being shaken by temporary appearances. You learn to stay steady internally even when nothing outside seems different yet. Because you understand that change is already in motion beneath the surface, you are not powerless in your circumstances. In fact, your inner state is the origin of them. This is not about blame, it is about awareness and responsibility. Because if your inner world created what you see now, it also means you have the power to reshape what comes next. You do not need to force life or control every outcome. You simply need to take responsibility for your inner condition. Begin to choose a new way of seeing yourself. Start believing that things are aligning even when you cannot yet see how. Trust that something is shifting quietly in your favor. The moment you change your inner assumption, you begin a new chain reaction. And with time, without force or struggle, your outer life begins to reflect that shift. What separates those who transform their lives from those who stay stuck is simple: persistence in belief. Not temporary hope, not random positivity, but a steady commitment to your inner truth, regardless of what appears outside. Most people believe for a moment, and when reality does not immediately change, they give up and fall back into doubt. And in that doubt, they undo their progress. But the ones who persist, who return again and again to their chosen belief even in difficult moments, are the ones who eventually see their world transform. Belief becomes powerful not when it is spoken once, but when it is maintained consistently, especially when circumstances challenge it. That is where real change is born. At that point, you stop merely hoping for a different reality and start consciously choosing it. You begin to understand that what you carry within you is more real than anything your senses are temporarily showing you. And this is where life starts to test you. Your outer world will always challenge your inner belief. Not because it is trying to break you, but because it is revealing how strong your focus really is. Situations will appear that seem to contradict everything you are trying to believe. You may see delays, setbacks, or signs that look like nothing is changing at all. And in those moments, you are faced with a choice. You either react and fall back into your old assumptions, or you stay centered and steady in the new direction you have chosen internally. This is the real difference between someone who transforms their life and someone who keeps repeating the same cycles. It is not about pretending to be positive all the time. It is not about forcing yourself into fake confidence. True persistence is quieter than that. It is the simple act of returning again and again to the belief you decided to hold, even after moments of doubt. Yes, there will be days when your mind feels unclear, days when uncertainty creeps in, moments when you question whether anything is really working. That is normal. But persistence means you don't stay in that space. You notice it and you come back. Over and over again, you bring your awareness back to what you have chosen to believe. Think of it like walking a new path. At first, it feels unfamiliar. You hesitate. You doubt the direction. You might even step away and return to old patterns. But the more you keep walking it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, it stops feeling like something you are trying to do and starts becoming who you are. And when belief becomes your natural state, life has no choice but to reflect it back to you. That is why consistency matters more than intensity. You don't need one dramatic moment of faith followed by days of fear. What matters is a steady inner knowing that stays with you throughout your day, in your thoughts, in your reactions, in how you interpret what happens around you. Even when you don't see evidence yet, you stay aligned. This is where most people give up too soon. They expect instant results. They assume that if something is real, it should show itself immediately. But real transformation doesn't begin on the surface. It begins beneath it. Just like a seed, growth starts underground. Roots form first before anything becomes visible. And in the same way, your new reality is developing quietly before it ever shows up in your physical world. If you dig it up too early with doubt and impatience, you interrupt its process. So you learn to trust not blindly but with understanding. You begin to recognize that persistence in your inner state is not wasted effort. It is exactly what is creating the change. Every time you choose faith instead of fear, you reinforce a new direction. Every time you refuse to return to your old story, you move closer to the version of life you want to experience, even when it feels slow, even when nothing seems obvious, even when silence is all you get for a while. Because silence does not mean nothing is happening. A powerful shift happens the moment you fully accept this. You start to see that your current situation is not fixed. It is not permanent. It is not a final verdict on your life. It is simply a temporary reflection of what you used to believe. And because it is based on the past, it does not have authority over your future unless you keep giving it that power. Most people get trapped here. They treat their current reality as evidence of what will always be. If things are bad, they assume they will stay bad. If something hasn't happened yet, they assume it never will. But this thinking locks them inside an old version of life that is already shifting. What they don't realize is that life is always moving, always responding, always adjusting to the inner state they repeatedly return to. Imagine looking into a mirror. If you don't like what you see, you don't fight the reflection. You don't try to force it to change. You simply change yourself, and the reflection follows automatically. Your life works in the same way. The outer world is not the source, it is the response. When you fight your circumstances directly with frustration or fear, you unintentionally keep feeding them. You keep them active in your awareness. But when you stop overreacting and begin to observe your situation differently, something shifts inside you. You stop identifying with what is temporary. You start seeing your circumstances as echoes of an older version of you, nothing more than passing expressions of past thinking. And once you stop giving them emotional power, they begin to lose their hold. There will be moments when what you see outside completely contradicts what you are trying to believe inside. And in those moments, awareness becomes everything. Because what you are witnessing is not proof that your change is failing. It is simply the final movement of an old pattern still playing out. Inner change does not always reflect instantly. There is often a transition phase where the old and new overlap. And this is where most people break their focus. They see the old reflection and assume nothing is working. So they return to doubt. And in doing so, they extend the old cycle. But if you remain steady, if you stay consistent without reacting emotionally to temporary conditions, something begins to shift on its own. The old begins to lose strength. New possibilities slowly start to appear. Not because you forced them, but because you stopped feeding what was fading. Learn to treat everything you see as temporary. Nothing external is final. Nothing is a fixed identity of your life. Your circumstances are like moving clouds. They may cover clarity for a moment, but they never erase the sky itself. Your inner state is that sky, constant, powerful, and always shaping what comes next. So when something discouraging appears, don't treat it like truth. Treat it like a passing moment. Don't react in a way that strengthens it. Don't fall back into old thinking patterns. Stay grounded in what you have decided to believe. Because the moment you stop feeding temporary shadows, they begin to dissolve. And what takes their place is the life you were already shaping within you, long before you could see it. The only real gap between you and what you desire is not time, not effort, and not even luck. It is alignment. Most people go through life believing they have to force things into existence, that they must struggle, push harder, and somehow control everything around them just to reach their goals. But that mindset actually creates resistance because it keeps your desire in a constant state of not yet. When you keep chasing something, you unconsciously reinforce the idea that it is missing, and what feels missing tends to stay out of reach. But the moment you shift your understanding and realize that everything is already formed in possibility, your entire relationship with life changes. You are no longer trying to get something, you are learning to align with what already exists. Your energy shifts from effort to embodiment, from chasing to accepting, from hoping to knowing. Think of it this way: every version of your life already exists in potential. There is a version of you who already has what you are trying to achieve, a version who is living in peace, success, and abundance. That version is not separate from you. It is simply a different state of being. And your role is not to create it from nothing, but to step into it by aligning your inner identity with it. This is where imagination becomes powerful. When you begin to see your desire as already fulfilled, when you feel it internally as real, you are not pretending. You are tuning into a version of reality that already exists in possibility. And as you stay in that inner state consistently, your outer world slowly begins to adjust and reflect it. But this requires a major shift in how you understand time. The mind is conditioned to think in terms of waiting. Something is coming, something is delayed, something is not here yet. However, when you understand that everything already exists in potential, you stop waiting. You start accepting. You begin to move with quiet certainty, not desperation. This doesn't mean ignoring your current situation. It means refusing to let it define your final outcome. You may still see circumstances that don't match what you desire, but you no longer identify with them. You recognize them as remnants of an old state that is already changing. Your attention shifts away from what is missing and moves toward what is already true within you. And this is where real transformation begins. Because once you fully accept something internally, everything changes: your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, even your decisions. You begin to operate from the identity of someone who already has it rather than someone trying to get it. And naturally, your actions start aligning with that identity. There is a calmness that comes with this understanding. The urgency fades. The anxiety settles. The need to force outcomes disappears. You are no longer trying to rush life into giving you something. Instead, you trust the process because you understand that what is accepted within eventually expresses itself without. So stop approaching your future as if it is somewhere far away that you must build from scratch. Stop acting like you are lacking something. Instead, recognize the deeper truth that it is already formed in potential. Step into it mentally. Feel it. Live from it internally. Because the moment you truly accept that your desire is already yours, something shifts. The process of manifestation doesn't begin later, it begins right then. What once felt distant slowly starts to feel natural, and eventually it becomes your lived reality. There is a subtle but powerful process that begins the moment you choose a new belief, a new identity, a new direction for your life. It works quietly beneath what you can immediately see. And while this process is always moving forward, there is one thing that can interrupt it more than anything else: doubt. Not a passing thought, not a brief uncertainty, but the kind of doubt you entertain repeatedly, the kind you return to and allow to take root. That is what disrupts the flow. Most people don't fail because they lack desire. They fail because they keep undoing their own progress internally. They feel inspired, they decide to change, they begin to believe, and then they look at their current reality. When they don't see instant results, doubt creeps in. Is this even working? What if nothing changes? What if I'm just imagining it? And in that moment, they slip back into the old state of thinking, the very state they were trying to leave behind. And that is how the cycle resets. Not because of the outside world, but because of the inner reaction to it. You need to understand this very clearly. The outer world doesn't update instantly when your inner state changes. There is always a delay between the shift within you and what you begin to see outside. During that gap, the old reality still plays out like an echo of what used to be. And if you don't understand this, you will mistake the delay for failure. You will assume nothing is happening, when in reality everything is already in motion, just not visible yet. This is the exact moment where doubt usually enters. It fills that silence and tries to convince you to go back to what feels familiar. It pushes you to rely only on what you can currently see, hear, and touch. But if you accept that, you interrupt the process you already started. You step back into the old pattern and everything resets again. That is why your inner commitment has to be stronger than your temporary emotions. You cannot let every passing feeling decide your direction. There will be moments where uncertainty shows up, moments where your confidence weakens. That is normal. But what truly matters is what you do next. Do you go back to fear, Or do you return to what you chose to believe? The goal is not to eliminate doubt completely. The goal is to stop giving it authority over you. You may notice it, but you don't follow it. You may feel it, but you don't obey it. Instead, you gently bring your focus back to what you decided is true, again and again until it becomes your natural way of thinking. Think of it like a signal you are constantly sending out. When your belief is steady, the signal is clean and consistent. But when you keep switching between belief and doubt, the signal becomes mixed. And that is when your experience feels unstable and confusing. Not because life is random, but because your inner state is inconsistent. So your work is simple even if it isn't always easy. Stay steady when nothing seems certain. Stay steady when results are not visible. Stay steady when your mind starts questioning everything. Stay steady because real change does not require perfection. It requires uninterrupted persistence. There is something powerful about a person who refuses to go back. Someone who has made a decision within themselves that no matter what appears, they will not return to their old way of thinking. That kind of inner stability creates real momentum. It slowly reshapes identity, and over time it becomes unshakable. So protect your inner state. Be mindful of what you accept as true. Don't let temporary appearances pull you out of alignment. Every time you fall into doubt and stay there, you delay what is already unfolding. Stay with your decision. Trust what has already begun within you. And most importantly, don't interrupt the process with constant questioning. Because the moment you remain faithful long enough, what was invisible starts to surface, and it reflects the belief you refuse to abandon. At some point, you reach a turning point not in the external world, but inside yourself. Because nothing truly changes outside until something shifts within first. And this is that moment of choice. Will you return to doubt, fear, and the old story that kept you stuck? Or will you rise into a quieter certainty, the knowing that things are already unfolding in your favor, even if you cannot yet see how? You don't actually need more time. You don't need more signs or proof. You don't need anything external to confirm it for you. All you need is to remain faithful to what you have already accepted internally. Because the moment you stop questioning it, the moment you stop wavering, the moment you fully settle into it, that is when things begin to shift in your outer reality. So move forward with calm certainty. Hold your vision without constantly adjusting it based on what you see. And no matter what shows up, no matter what you hear, feel, or experience, don't let go. What is meant for you is already in motion. And when it finally appears, it will simply be reflecting the inner state you chose to remain loyal to all along. Everything you have heard comes down to a single truth that changes the way you experience life from its very foundation. Nothing in your outer world is fixed, permanent, or final. What you are living right now is not the conclusion of your story. It is only a reflection of where your consciousness has been, not where it is going. The real power has never been outside of you. It has always been within your inner state, your beliefs, your assumptions, and the quiet identity you keep returning to when no one is watching. What separates change from stagnation is not effort, struggle, or waiting for the perfect moment. It is the ability to remain aligned with what you have chosen within yourself, even when the outer world does not immediately confirm it. There will always be a delay between inner transformation and outer expression, and in that delay, most people lose themselves. They mistake silence for failure, uncertainty for proof that nothing is working, and temporary shadows for permanent reality. But the truth is far more powerful than that. What you plant within is already in motion, even if your senses cannot yet verify it. Life is not ignoring you, it is responding to you at a deeper level than appearances can reveal. Every time you return to doubt, you slow what is unfolding. Every time you return to belief, you strengthen it. And every time you refuse to abandon what you decided within, you build a new version of yourself that no longer reacts to the old story. This is why persistence is not about forcing positivity or denying reality. It is about loyalty to your inner decision. It is about becoming someone who no longer abandons their vision just because it has not fully arrived yet. You begin to understand that your current circumstances are not your identity. They are simply echoes of an older mindset that is already dissolving. And once you stop giving those echoes authority, they begin to fade on their own. What replaces them is not something you chase, but something you allow to emerge through your steady state of being. So the conclusion of all of this is simple but profound. You are not waiting for life to change. You are allowing it to catch up with who you have already decided to become. When your inner world becomes consistent, your outer world has no choice but to follow. Not instantly, not always visibly, but inevitably. So hold your vision without compromise. Return to your chosen belief without hesitation. Stop measuring progress by what you see and start trusting the movement you feel within. Because what is real within you will always, without exception, find its way into your external reality. And the moment you fully accept that, You stop living as someone trying to create a life and start living as someone whose life is already unfolding exactly as it was meant to.